All right, Trump gives the go-ahead for an Epstein file full release. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. The president has come around late last night, Trump telling House Republicans to vote for a full release of the Epstein files tomorrow afternoon, saying Republicans should vote to release the files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetuated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. Continuing, the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to, saying he doesn't care. All he wants is for Republicans to get back on point. The House vote tomorrow compels the release of all criminal investigations into Epstein, witness and victim transcripts, which are going to be very interesting, and items confiscated from raids of Epstein properties. Here was the president earlier today.
I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, no matter what we give, it's never enough. You know, with Kennedy, we gave everything and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything and it's never enough. It's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. I'm for I don't, they can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would.
Sure, I would. Right there toward the end, the president says once the bill comes to his desk, of course, he'll sign it. And from that point, the DOJ would have 30 days to release all Epstein files in an easily searchable format. It is a sigh of relief for many Trump supporters who've been disappointed in the lack of transparency on Epstein and the weird responses to it. Typically a very transparent White House. And everyone knows that the government has been hiding something about this scandal for a very long time. And it's come from both sides of the aisle. And this is the stuff that people hate about government. After the House votes tomorrow, the bill goes to the Senate. Trump's sudden switch to fully supporting the release, though, is being covered in the media as some kind of capitulation to his own party. But the same people claiming this also claim that the files are going to expose the president was involved in Epstein's perversions, people like Chris Murphy.
True that Donald Trump is trying to cover up for, I think, a host of really powerful and rich people, but he's frankly not that selfless. He wouldn't be going through all of this effort to try to stop the release of these files if he wasn't seriously implicated in those files. This is most likely the biggest corruption scandal in the history of the country.
He's about as gross as Swalwell at this point. So Trump's in the files, right? It's the greatest scandal in history. But when the authorization to dump all this information out arrives at his desk, he's just going to sign the bill? That's what Trump said unequivocally today in the Oval Office. He's going to sign it. They're going to do the full release. Described by former Meet the Press host turned irrelevant podcaster Chuck Todd as Trump flailing. Take a listen.
We have a president who is in the midst of a feeding frenzy, and it is a feeding frenzy that he can't control, and he is flailing. We've been in these positions with him before, and he always navigates his way out of it.
They are so obsessed with the idea that there are just tremendous amounts of perversions from our president inside of these files. And this time it's different, he says, right? After 10 years of Trump, he's finally going down with this. Chuck Todd, the latest former mainstream media host, whose next move proved exactly why he was fired as he sits in his bedroom spewing Democrat talking points. Anybody who thinks the Epstein files contains a wealth of perversions committed by our president is just politically unintelligent. For 4 years, all of this information, as you know, was in the hands of a very partisan, Democrat-run DOJ. A DOJ which attacked conservatives in many ways purely for politics. A DOJ that tried to imprison the man who's now the president of the United States to keep him from that job. It would have been far easier to just leak a couple documents, explicit documents, and turn Trump into a societal pariah if those documents existed. And trust when I tell you that they know whether or not they do, because no matter who is it in the White House and the DOJ, the first thing they're going to do is figure out what the hell is going on with that Epstein guy that we've been talking about for all these years. The story doesn't add up, and they're disingenuous about everything Epstein. And so they do what? They had to lie about the emails that we saw last week. They just flat out lie and do a redaction unnecessarily to conceal the fact that the girl they're talking about was one of Trump's exonerators. A reminder again, they had 4 years and they had nothing. They didn't release a thing, and the media never pressured them to. And today, Chuck Schumer was reminded of that in a question, and this non-answer, was one of the funniest we've ever seen from Schumer in all of these decades. Take a listen.
Why wouldn't they have been released the last 4 years when President Biden was in office?
Well, that's the question every American is asking. Not every American, but so many Americans are asking. What the hell is he hiding? Why doesn't he want them released? When you don't want something like this released, when even a whole lot of Republicans are calling for the release, his own party members, people ask the question, what's he hiding? It's got to be answered by releasing the files.
Chuck, they asked why the Biden White House, and you were right there as Senate leader, did not release this for 4 years. I don't think he really knew an answer to that, so he just pretended like he didn't hear the question. Pretty good of Schumer there. It's easy to see why Democrats likely never released any of this. Some very big names in their universe are either alleged or known to be in the files. Former President Bill Clinton, billionaire founder of LinkedIn, and major Democrat donor and sycophant Reid Hoffman right there in the middle. And then you have Clinton's former Treasury Secretary and one of Obama's top economists, Larry Summers, right there on the far right. Even a left-leaning radio host has noticed the severe double standard on Epstein. Take a look.
It's just funny how the news works, because Bill Clinton, wrote a letter to, Jeffrey Epstein as well for his birthday, but nobody's talking about that. And Jeffrey Epstein had a picture of Bill Clinton in a dress and high heels, in his New York mansion, but nobody's talking about that. My thing is this. I don't care who's on the list. Everybody got to go. Burn it all down. Like, that's just simple as that. Mutually assured destruction. Whoever's on that list need to go. Nobody needs to be protecting pedophiles. I don't care what party they are.
Exactly. And that's why it was such a sigh of relief to see the president make the right move and say, dump it all out. Let's just go. It is now the biggest story. Why did nobody care about this when Biden was in the White House? Nobody cared. But it's now the biggest story in the world, right? Well, because Epstein is a close friend of their cause, helping Stacey Plaskett, a delegate from our territory, the U.S. Virgin Islands, who pretends to be a member of Congress. Plaskett was texting with this pedophile, getting advice on questions to ask Michael Cohen just before a House Oversight Committee hearing in 2019. Cohen was there, of course, to bash Trump. This is when Democrats had control of the House during the first term. As a guest of Democrats on the committee, you had Cohen there and Epstein coaching Plaskett on what to ask. And this is long after we knew exactly the deeds that Epstein had been engaged in. One text from Plaskett, quick, I'm up next. After advising Plaskett, Cohen tells her, good work. Last week, these same people, just like her, took an Epstein email about Virginia Giuffre, the most vocal of all the victims by far, also a young woman who ended up being a Trump exonerator in many different ways. They just redacted her name to make it appear that the president is a pedophile. That's the people we're dealing with right now. And David Schoen is Jeffrey Epstein's former criminal defense lawyer, joins us now. And David, so good to have you back on. What's your response to the allegation that the president is hiding these files to protect himself?
It's absolutely untrue. I've said this before. Jeffrey Epstein, if he had dirt on President Trump, would have used it for maximum leverage, I can assure you, for his criminal case. And frankly, as I've said before, he made clear to me that he had no such evidence and that he wanted that to be known. This, the things coming out now, this is part of the reason, I think, frankly, that responsible people thought we shouldn't have a wholesale disclosure. The problems are this. People's names come up in the files who did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. But if the media doesn't like them, they'll try to draw some kind of innuendo, negative innuendo about them. There got to be attorney-client privileged emails among the trove here. And so a responsible person, wouldn't want those things to be disclosed. The other thing is many of these sources of information told stories and then recanted them. Virginia Giuffre was the example you used, the New York Times last week. I mean, she's probably the best known of the people who have complained about Epstein. She accused one person and filed a lawsuit, and then later said, well, maybe she had him mixed up with someone else. There are other examples of that as well. But last week, as you pointed out, the New York Times, knowing this was Virginia Giuffre, the biggest name of all of them, redacted her name and told a story that President Trump spent a long time, supposedly, in Epstein's home with one of the victims. Turns out she's given deposition testimony saying he did nothing wrong, and she put it in her book.
Sworn and in the book, she said that the president didn't do anything wrong. I got 20 seconds left, though. Do you think, I mean, the president initially hated this question. When lambast reporters were asking him about Epstein, do you think it's as simple as, you know, this is just going to show that they were in the same circles, and it's going to be a lot of information, it's going to be a lot of insinuation, and the reporters are going to be able to do a lot of damage with that, just the same way that they just did with the Giuffre, the Epstein email regarding Virginia Giuffre? I mean, if they can take something as innocuous as that and turn it into a big scandal for a day, does Trump just see them being able to do this endlessly with a million emails?
It happens every day. We misinterpret emails without the writer being present. President Trump, I think, didn't want all of this circus to go on because it distracts from the agenda of all of the things that he's doing around the world. This, as he has said, is Mueller too. It's the same kind of agenda. Just keep this going, and the conspiracy theorists will never be satisfied. Unfortunately, now I'm afraid they're going to rue the day because, as you say, the texts have come out with Representative Plaskett.
Right.
There will be other things like that. So we'll see.
David Schoen, Epstein's former attorney. Thank you, David. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, Congresswoman Paulina Luna is the chairwoman of the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. That subcommittee, and she joins us now. And Congresswoman, it's good to have you back on. I want to start with this from Politico today, that they wrote that Trump has blinked on Epstein as GOP rebels. Is that how you would classify what we saw from the president over the weekend?
No, in fact, I believe on Friday he actually made a statement that Republicans should vote for the release of the files. But I think President Trump knows, and he's been messaging, his message on this has stayed consistent, and that he understands that this, from the get-go, has really been something that the Democrats chose to weaponize against him. Remember, when Biden was president, there was not a peep. And of course, last year, I believe it was in November, when Senator Marsha Blackburn actually went to get the fight logs released, it was a Democrat senator that actually voted to block those release of the logs. And then, as you saw recently, this past week, Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee actually made a motion to release those files, and Democrats also voted to block that. So, in my opinion, the Democrats have been, again, using this as a political hot potato. They actually have no intention of receiving justice for the victims. But of course, after President Trump's tweet, where he actually pointed out also, not to mention Reid Hoffman and Bill Clinton also being implicated, but I actually just found out from our investigators over at Oversight that the Clintons are actually refusing to come forward and testify. And so that's going to be interesting thing. I think they'll be hit with the subpoena here pretty soon.
Yeah, well, that was just going to ask you about that, because that was your latest tweet on X, was that they won't testify. So, I mean, Clinton has clearly got, you know, an affiliation with Epstein and spent a lot of time with him, and neither of them are they're gonna force you to come get him, huh?
I guess so, but what's crazy about this whole thing is the Democrats have made no comment on this, nor are they making any comment on the fact that a member of Congress, Plaskett, had actually been texting back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein to try to get dirt on the president during impeachment trials. And so they want to try to pretend like they're fighting for victims, but when it comes to calling out their own party for the involved ties to Jeffrey Epstein, they want nothing to do with it.
It is so interesting that, I'm of the group that believes that if especially with Biden's very weaponized DOJ that had these files for all of those years, that if there was anything really dirty on the president, it certainly would have come out, because they tried every other possible maneuver, including bankrupting him and putting him in jail to keep him out of the White House. So there's not going to be any grand revelation. But I guess my question to you is this, just to finalize it. This White House, in my opinion, doesn't want to release these files. Like, they don't have an interest in doing this. The previous White House did not want to release these files either. I don't think either White House really wants to do this. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can tell you, based on what we found actually in February of this past year, we actually found out from a whistleblower that came forward that under the former deputy director of the FBI, there was destruction of evidence specifically pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. I'd actually forwarded that information off to the FBI. And it was interesting because back in January and February timeframe when I was looking into this, not one member of Congress wanted to get involved in any of that. And so I have forwarded that, and to my understanding, the FBI is currently involved in an investigation. But this White House has been the only administration that's actually released now over 50,000 pages of evidence, also compiled previously filed evidence where you would have had to gone in person to get this. And so it's not that there's something to hide, but I think the president is accurate in saying that this information that they've released, when you look at the people involved, the levels of people that are implicated, I mean, you're absolutely correct. If they had anything on the president, they would have used it. They have nothing, and they're still making it up, trying to imply that he was somehow involved. And the fact is that I do believe that this has been weaponized against the administration to draw away focus and attention on the fact that the Democrats have no platform. They're running Democrat socialists left and right. They literally cheered on the execution of Charlie Kirk, and they're literally trying not to talk about the issues.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but you do agree with me that there's obviously more names and people that are in this thing. And I only got about 20 seconds left, but it does seem like, I mean, everybody thinks there's more to this, right? We all agree on that. And yet there's, you know, this administration's been more open than any other, but there's still not that, they don't want to dump it out or else they would have just dumped it out. What is the problem? Why is it that this is a bipartisan issue?
Well, I can tell you from my work on oversight, we're doing everything that we can, but we have released all the documentation that's been given to us from the Department of Justice. And in addition, remember, there's still an open pending lawsuit with Deutsche Bank and some of these Epstein client victims. And so whenever we actually had met with the victims themselves, we actually asked for those names and they promised to give them to us. And I actually just checked back in with oversight earlier today, and we've still not received those names. So I definitely think that there's more people involved, but I think that that kind of gets hairy, especially when you have a pending lawsuit in regards to what information can be shared, et cetera, and not using our positions to tip the outcomes of that lawsuit.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I commend you for this. Also, the work you're doing on stock trading, trying to get rid of that as well. These are very, very good ideas from the people of this country. Not as popular where you are, but very good ideas from the people of this country that put you there. And thank you so much for the transparency. Congresswoman Paulina Luna, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Trump returns his focus to affordability. We've got that next with advisor Stephen Miller.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians. Bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
Your parents have given you some amazing gifts, but what about the inherited ones? Celebrate them with Ancestry DNA, the simple test that shows your deep family roots from your mom's side and your dad's side, with some serious detail. Trace the journeys and history that shaped who you are today, and see the traits they passed down. Your connections to the past are all waiting. See just how gifted you are for only $39.
Hey, I'm Mike Hammond from Signal Relief. You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult for me. But that's why I love the Signal Relief patch. It helped me enjoy the holidays again. It helped me enjoy my family again. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers in pain because I know it works. In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief. It really doesn't matter where you hurt because the patch works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. For a limited time, we're bringing back our largest discount ever, 50% off. So get a Signal Relief patch today. Trust me when I tell you, the patch works.
Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements. Get 35% off your first preferred set by using discount code Newsmax.
The one and only McDonald's. I've gone there a couple of times. And I'm honored to stand before you as the very first former McDonald's fry cook ever to become president of the United States. And I actually was there for about 30 minutes, and that was 30 minutes longer than Kamala was there. Right? Despite her job at McDonald's, that didn't work out too well.
Remember that October 2024, Trump, the 45th president and the candidate at the time, worked a shift at McDonald's on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania, making the fries. A little over a year later, the president addressing an audience of McDonald's executives and franchisees at the McDonald's Impact Summit in D.C. just a little bit ago, zeroing in on affordability as polls show Americans are still struggling with the high cost of living handed to us by all of that inflation under Joe Biden and all that government spending. From Reuters, Trump will travel domestically before year-end to tout his economic agenda and highlight efforts to improve affordability, and he could make new announcements on lowering health costs in coming days and weeks. All right, White House advisor Stephen Miller joins us tonight from the White House, and it's good to have you back on. And we're talking affordability tonight with the president. And, you know, we've been through a really bad few years. Inflation skyrocketed for very obvious reasons, tremendous spending in Washington. The cost of living, though, it remains high, because when inflation goes down, that doesn't mean the prices drop. We don't deflate. It just means that we're going up at a slower rate. And I think Democrats and the media have done a pretty good job of making what was the Biden inflation disaster this White House's problem. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with you that the Democrat media lies for a living, that they're professional liars. So it's a good opportunity to review the facts. Under President Trump in the last few months, we have seen the first significant reductions in prices and the cost of living since the last time President Trump was in office. For 4 years, we saw record-setting double-digit inflation upwards of 20%. And now under President Trump, inflation is back down to desired benchmark levels of a little bit over 2%. But to be clear, President Trump is doing more every single day to keep bringing costs down. President Trump is fighting to reduce the cost of energy to historic lows. Did you know that right now, as an example, Americans are spending less of their disposable income on energy because of President Trump's work to open up American energy than at any point in 2 decades? So he's removed all the regulations, opened up drilling, opened up oil, opened up natural gas. He's brought down the price of household goods. He's brought down the price of groceries. He has fought like a warrior to bring costs down. But we cannot be strong enough in stating just how much damage Biden and the Democrats did to the economy over 4 years in creating record-setting, budget-busting Biden inflation. But President Trump, since he came in, has been working to bring down prices, bring down costs. Look at another issue, Obamacare. Obamacare has been an abject failure. Obamacare has led to rising premiums for Americans. Who gave us Obamacare? The Democrats. Who's fighting to defend American patients from Obamacare? Republicans and President Trump. And one more issue we have to talk about is immigration. For 4 years, the housing costs were exploding because Democrats were flooding your communities with illegal immigrants, with foreign workers, and with foreign nationals who were getting subsidized housing, rent-controlled housing, Section 8 housing, even public housing, gobbling up housing supply. President Trump is reversing that migration.
Yeah, and it was funny. I caught on Morning Joe this morning that they were mocking the idea that the illegal immigration insanity that we went through for 4 years affected home prices, as if bringing 20 million people into a country wouldn't create upward pressure on the price of a house. Of course it is. Where do you think all of these people are living? They're living in homes. It's simple supply and demand, and they spent the first 5 minutes of the show mocking that, which I just thought was comical. Inflation is down. It's obviously closer to
40% of the population of rent-controlled housing in New York City are foreign-born. Think about that. In one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world, 40% of rent-controlled properties are being lived in by people who weren't even born in the country? What kind of system is this? We bring in people from foreign countries, and then we pay to lower the cost of their housing, while people who were born here have to pay higher prices? So when President Trump is reducing net migration, that is what's going to ultimately, along with all these other steps, deregulation, historic tax cuts, going to bring down the cost of housing.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this. Inflation obviously is down close to around 3 points. You're trying to get it down to 2, and I know that's the benchmark. Democrats, though, they say, and I think they have a point here, that you've rolled back tariffs on meat, tomatoes, bananas to get costs down. They say that proves that the White House understands that tariffs can be inflationary. What's your response to that?
What it proves is that Democrats don't understand how trade works, and they don't understand how foreign policy works. President Trump initiated his IEEPA tariffs to save America's defense industrial base and manufacturing base, which was vacuumed up by foreign countries all over the world. NAFTA sucked the jobs out of this country. The World Trade Organization sucked the jobs out of this country.
Yeah.
The European Union stole our jobs. So President Trump issued tariffs that have been used to slash our trade deficit, reshore our manufacturing, bring back jobs, and result in trillions with AT, trillions of investment in this country as a result of specific trade deals that were reached. For example, in Central America, we are now able to remove tariffs on certain products. How can you enter into a negotiation with a country that is ripping you off and stealing your industry, but at the starting point you're exempting their own critical industries from your tariffs? This is the end result of a successful negotiation. One of the issues that was resolved in this negotiation, for example, is the theft of American textile jobs. So President Trump is achieving fair trade deals that restore our critical industries, that slash our trade deficit, and then as a part of those successful agreements, we're able to lower these tariffs.
Fair enough. And obviously, I understand the tariff game. I do think in the immediate term it can be somewhat inflationary, but I also understand why it's needed, and I understand the end goal of it.
Leave the fact in mind that inflation is down in record time. It took Reagan over 2 years to make a dent in Carter's inflation. Over 2 years. And to do it, if you remember, Reagan brought interest rates up to massive numbers, which led to an extraordinary contraction in the economy and millions of job losses to ultimately get past inflation, right, in 1982, when he came in, or in 83, 82, when he came in 81, was elected in 80. President Trump, through his, judge it by the results, President Trump came into office, slashed the trade deficit, trillions in new investment, critical industries back on our shores, wages are rising for the first time in 4 years, energy costs are the lowest they've been in 4 years, and he did it all while also implementing these tariffs. So the claims that tariffs would cause inflation have been proven flat out wrong. Democrats wrecked the economy for 4 years. Let's remember, for 4 years, they put you through economic hell. President Trump is the one who's reversing that.
Trust me, I get it more than anyone. I want to ask you really quickly about the H-1B visa before I let you go. The president had the Laura Ingraham interview, made some comments that set off some people saying that we don't need, we need foreign workers. We don't have enough people in this country to do these kinds of jobs. He clarified it earlier. I want to play that if we can, guys.
We have to train our people how to make chips because we didn't do it. We used to do it, and then foolishly we lost that business to Taiwan.
So, the H-1B is interesting because he put that big $100,000 tax on that visa, which I think people in this country loved, especially the MAGA base loved. And then he makes the comments to Ingram. Where does the White House stand tonight on the H-1B visa?
Well, the president was very clear in the comments that you just played, which is that he's talking about the semiconductor industry, which is one of the most coveted industries in the world, one of the most national security important industries in the world. Very few other countries are able to compete in this space, and all of those jobs left for Taiwan. And so the advanced semiconductor industry, which is essential to our national security, has been taken out of the country. And so he's talking about a program in which you have a knowledge transfer to Americans of how to do a very specific manufacturing process. That's completely separate and apart from the fact, as you mentioned, that President Trump, through 212F, has put a $100,000 fee on new H-1Bs. We're already seeing a dramatic change in the processing of these visas as a result of that. The Department of Labor has launched Project Firewall to fight illegal discrimination against Americans and illegal abuses of the H-1B program. You also have the highest standard of vetting that have ever been in place in new visas, including foreign student visas. The State Department has revoked tens of thousands of visas, and they're just getting started with tens of thousands of more. We have a new focus on denaturalizations. We have a new focus on cutting back on welfare tourism and welfare migration. And, of course, you've seen, again, for the first time in over half a century, net negative migration to this country. You have more foreigners leaving the country than those that are being added on a permanent basis. The last time that happened, again, was over half a century ago during the period in American history in which we had net negative migration for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I think the demographics of the country were changing quite a bit too fast for most people's tastes, and it seems like that's moving back in a direction that's more palpable to the American people. Stephen Miller from the White House. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Gavin Newsom with a flimsy response after 2 U.S. senators excoriated his handling of the Palisades fire recovery. Actor and comedian Jamie Kennedy knows the story very well. He's up next. You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.
He's breathing. Okay. Go again.
Children account for 75% of choking deaths.
That's why I recommend everyone have a life vac in your home, car, or business.
The life vac is simple to use. Just place, push, and pull.
Its suction removes an obstruction out of the airway quickly, saving a life.
If you use your life vac for an emergency, we'll replace it for free. Order now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galena. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
Tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
We got to find out what happened here for the victims, especially the seniors that died out here. It's wrong. I mean, this fire should have been able to be prevented. They should have been able to help each of these families so their homes didn't burn down.
It happened because of gross incompetence, gross negligence on the part of elected officials at the state and the local level. And the people here in Palisades, they've been abandoned.
So that was last week on this show. 2 senators blasting Gavin Newsom's wildfire response, one of Gavin's biggest political liabilities as he gears up for a very obvious presidential run. Newsom's team fired us a quick message after that one, requesting we clear up misinformation from the senators and wrote, if these two senators truly cared about helping people get back on their feet, they would be lobbying Congress to immediately pass a disaster aid bill, not flying across the country to kick fire survivors while they are down, which is the most ridiculous illustration of what they were there to do. Typical politics. The senators responded to that today, calling Newsom's response a pathetic attempt to blame others for his miserable failures, saying he should do what we did, go to the Palisades, spend hours listening to the victims of that fire. Jamie Kennedy is an actor and a comedian. He's an LA guy, lives in West Hollywood, and joins us tonight here on the set. You went through this like so many did. Those fires were terrifying. They were largely preventable, and the response has been horrific. What's your response to how Newsom responded?
Okay, first of all, it's a California issue, okay?
Yeah.
We have fires. There's something actually called a fire season.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing is insurance companies, a lot of them pulled out, okay? So a lot of people were running raw, okay? They didn't have that.
Right.
The fires happen, okay? High winds, horrific amalgamation of events, okay?
Yeah.
What happens? Well, the reservoirs are empty, okay? Fire hydrants weren't working in certain places. The mayor was in Uganda, okay? This spread insane quicker than I've ever seen. I've lived there for 35 years. And then Newsom didn't even make a statement for a couple of days. And then the reservoirs were empty for something because we're saving the smelt.
Yeah.
And then when they said hydrants weren't working, he started doing the Newsom thing. He's like, well, that's a local issue.
Everywhere.
That's her. That's him. That's them.
Right.
And he starts doing the dance. The bottom line is, it was insane.
He's running the state.
7 places were affected. And you can't tell me an ember, plus arsonist, you can't tell me an ember from the Palisades floats all the way over to Altadena.
Yeah.
Okay. Hollywood proper was burning.
Yeah.
And so the biggest issue is, the biggest thing is LAFD saved us with the air support.
And real quick, and they did. And real quick, Newsom says the reason that the recovery has been this slow is solely because Republicans are not allowing aid to flow to California for personal reasons. Does he believe anybody actually thinks that's the reason? You got people that are sitting here for 9-10 months and they can't even get a frickin' permit to start rebuilding their house. Meanwhile, they're paying taxes on that property. I can't imagine the fury.
Bro, I have to tell you, I have been to Beirut. Okay, I've done shows in Beirut, and when you drive through the Palisades, it looks war-torn. It looks like parts of Beirut. It's so sad. Iconic places, reel in. It's been there since 1972, family-owned. Just tons of places are gone. The Palisades, you can see through.
Yeah.
It's beyond sad. It's horrific. And it stinks of corruption.
It certainly does. You're in town. You're talking about this. You're speaking out and warning about a national air conditioning crisis. That's budding in this country. You know, obviously we've got an EPA in there now. We know Lee Zeldin very well. What is this, and what does he need to know about air conditioning?
First of all, you know it's a problem if I'm talking about it. I mean, I should be talking about these issues, guys. I should be doing jokes. But here's the thing: there was a big thing called the Kigali Agreement. It was happening around the world. Everybody for global warming and such, let's do something better. So they came up with a new refrigerant. The problem is this refrigerant is now more flammable than the old refrigerant, okay? And it also has something called PFAs, which are forever chemicals, which you cannot get rid of, okay? It's then $75 to replace a canister is now $750 to $1,200. That's a 1,000 to 1,500% increase, okay? People don't realize it's an issue. I was sitting in a high-end restaurant in WeHo. It was hot. I go, what's up? He goes, turn the air conditioning on. He goes, it's really expensive. This is a problem. It's going to outlaw all the parts. People are going to have to reconfigure all their air conditioning.
And it's happening soon.
It was supposed to be 15 years for the world to transfer. Guess what? We have 15 months in America. It started January 1st. We have 4 months left.
We're going to talk to Lee Zeldin about that the next time I talk to him, the head of the EPA.
CAA.MMA.org for signatures.
CAA.MMA.org.
No, MMACAA.org. My bad.
We got it right there. We'll Google it. Jamie Kennedy, thanks
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Good to see you. All right, Trump drops the hammer on Indiana as some state Republicans get a little soft. We've got the governor up next.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
As we mark 250 years of America, Wounded Warrior Project honors those who serve. They've given us their commitment and sacrifice. We're here to give them a brighter future. Our programs and services help warriors access VA benefits, improve mental and physical health, and thrive for a lifetime. They've given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength and resilience. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Donate your car to today's veterans and help support Tunnel the Towers. The process is quick and simple, and the proceeds from your generous car donation will go to support the good work that T2T is doing throughout our community. Any car is accepted, running or not, and we will pick it up for free. Your car donation will help Tunnel the Towers to help our dedicated veterans and their families. So call 888-980-VETS or donate your car online at today'sveterans.org. Your car donation really does make a difference.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
Now it's a great time to play Solitaire Grand Harvest and enjoy a new world of solitaire. Brr, a cold world. This Christmas, discover all the holiday fun with exciting features from Santa, like our winter tournaments, festive mini-games, and challenging levels. Ever built a farm in the snow? 'Tis the season to turn classic into fantastic. So download Solitaire Grand Harvest for free and see for yourself.
All right, California wants to gerrymander its way to a victory in the midterms, right? Republicans' national redistricting efforts, though, are stalling in deep red Indiana, a proposal that would add 2 GOP congressional seats ahead of the midterms. At least 6 Indiana Republican state senators, right there on the screen, reportedly rejecting a December redistricting special section. This happening, of course, as Gavin Newsom looks to add 5 seats in California. Republicans trying to fight back. The president posting he's going to be strongly endorsing against any state senator or House member from the state of Indiana that votes against this, saying Democrats are trying to steal seats everywhere and they're not going to let it happen. The governor of Indiana, Mike Braun, joins us now. Congressman Marlin Stutzman with him as well, both leading the charge to redistrict Indiana and fight back. And good to have you both on. Governor, the president called you out on Truth Social a little bit, saying that you're not working hard enough to get the necessary votes. What's your response to that? And what are you guys doing to try and make this happen?
I talked to him for over 10 minutes here earlier today, and I think calling the state out, he knows where I'm at in this whole navigation. I can call them into session, and I did that with plenty of time. This has been several months, Rob, where they've been dragging their feet. And as more senators started coming forward, they actually put the wet blanket on it because they knew it was going to get there. And that's where the Senate pro tem said they're not even going to gavel into session. The House has already said they've got the number of votes needed, and they've got to at least do it to put pressure on the Senate. So This is clearly a Senate leadership group that has no interest in doing this. I mean, this has big implications in terms of the agenda in D.C.
And Congressman Stutzman, it begs the question, why? Why is the resistance there? What is the purpose when California is doing what it's doing? What is the purpose of saying no to this as a Republican?
Rob, I tell you, I don't understand it. I mean, we have supermajorities in Indiana. We've had them since 2010, somewhere in there, 2012. We've had a strong conservative legislature for some time. And I basically think it's just that they don't understand the fight we're in. I mean, you know, President Trump took a bullet to the ear. He's been investigated. He's been impeached. He's gone to the wall for the American people to save this country. And these senators need to understand that's the fight we're in. It's a very different fight in Indiana in the legislature. When you get to the federal level, Democrats are willing to go to the wall for their politics, and they're much better at politics than what we have been. President Trump has actually taught us how to fight back.
Yeah. Governor, the president going after this one Indiana state senator, Rod Bray, stating that in the whole country, Democrat or Republican, he's the only one opposed to redistricting for the purposes of gaining additional seats in Congress. Have they, the same question I just gave to the congressman, Governor, but have they explained to you why they're objecting to doing this?
They think that we're jumping the gun because we're doing it mid-census. Democrats have done this. They're complaining so much because they've got everything so gerrymandered. And they're actually thinking that this is just out of order. We shouldn't be doing it. And when Marlin just mentioned why, there's a lot at stake. Not to mention that our direct comparison, Massachusetts, with the same number of electoral votes, has been gerrymandered for nearly 2 decades. The 6 bluest states outside of California have 3 times the number of electoral votes as the 6 reddest states. They don't equivocate about it. And yes, you're condoning big Democratic liberal policies by not at least evening the playing field. It's evening the playing field is what at stake.
Well, the Trump pressure campaign has begun. And Governor, I got 2 seconds left, but how many more votes do you need to pull?
So the House needs to get it across the line to pressure the Senate. And then we are ready within a couple votes. You make it public, we'll get it over the hump.
We'll get it done.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
Okay. Governor, Congressman, good to see you both. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. New policy advisor for women and girls in the state of Massachusetts. No, I'm not kidding. Next.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
You've put up with your old shower for too long. It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day? And there's no need to break a sweat or your budget.
For a limited time, get free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
So you can finally convert your old bath to a safer, easy entry shower, complete with a custom seat, grab bars, and slip-resistant floor installed in 1 day.
My overall experience with Jacuzzi has been wonderful. Everything was customized to the way I wanted it for the price that I wanted to pay.
I've had a great experience from start to finish.
Don't take matters into your own hands. Do it the smart way. Give Jacuzzi Bath Remodel a call.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. For the first time ever, we're offering free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
Call 800-201-9527, 800-201-9527. Call now.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000.
I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. The founder of Barstool explains one of the reasons he stopped supporting Democrats. Take a look.
They were very anti-normal guys. To be honest, the white guy, and this sounds, but was the bad guy, became the bad guy. And there's a lot of, white dudes who are like, well, I'm not the bad guy. Like, what are you getting mad at me for? I wasn't here for colonialism or any of the stuff that you guys are complaining about 200 years ago. Like, what did I do?
Fair point. Very fair point, and pretty accurate on the reasons why there's no real men left in the Democratic Party. Next up, comedian Andrew Schultz pointing out a very dark hypocrisy in this country.
It's just funny to me that, there are people that were happy Charlie Kirk got shot because they disagreed on opinions, and they're fighting for due process for people who are driving fentanyl into the country. Yeah, what the do we live in? Why do we have more humanity for people who are actually profiting off of killing Americans?
Yeah, you're going to find a lot of hypocrisy when you deal with radical leftists, when you deal with communists. Not a lot of it makes sense. It's just ideological rot is what it is, and there's a ton of hypocrisy to find. And finally tonight, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, one of the worst in the country, appointing Giselle Byrd, a man posing as a woman, in case you couldn't tell, to the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, which advises the state on policies that affect women and little girls. Byrd saying it's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve alongside my fellow sister commissioners as the first transgender woman of color on the commission. She also was the executive director of the Theater Offensive, which has a mission statement on their website that says to present liberating art by, for, and about queer and trans people of color that transcends artistic boundaries, celebrates cultural abundance, and dismantles oppression. It's fun. We'll be right back, but first, a message from actor Jon Voight on New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Check this out.
The mayor that has taken over New York City is a Muslim that's going to take down the city that never sleeps, the city of life's dreams, this city that our ancestors brought forth in prosperity and greatness and liberty. This city will turn into a forbidden place of darkness. The blood, sweat, and tears that the city of New York was built on will turn into a virtual refugee shelter for the radical Muslim ideology. This is now the most dangerous time for our citizens of New York. This mayor will destroy this city. We are obligated to demand our rights for our private sanctuary, our businesses, our property that we all have worked so hard for. And this 35-year-old mayor has no right dictating the rules of socialism for a city built on our highest principles with brick and stone by hardworking Americans. This must be stopped, and his mayoralty should be terminated immediately. You, the people of the greatest city, New York, are in danger of losing your city to this communist fool. We, the people, must stand for the greatest nation's purpose, the honor of our flag, the red, white, and blue, and for which it stands, one nation under God, and liberty and justice for all. This country, the United States of America, is the land of our greatest achievement, the American dream. And we, the people, have put our trust in the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He and only he can stop this horror, as this Mayor Mamdani will try to destroy New York's wealth and turn it into a socialist crap city. Let this be a warning to the people. And may God bless. May God bless.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. With trillions of dollars vanishing from the stock portfolios of retiring Americans, many hardworking people I speak with are concerned about the holdings in their IRAs. But I have good news for you. Our team at Swiss America can show you how easy it is to own gold in your IRA. You see, even with economic turmoil all around us, gold continues to not only be a safe haven, but is also increasing to all-time highs. The volatility of markets has created a lot of undue stress for people. Wouldn't you like that peace of mind that diversifying into metals can provide? For over 40 years, Swiss America has helped people just like you own precious metals in your IRAs. So don't miss this opportunity. Call or text our team at the number on your screen to receive a free copy of our Gold IRA brochure today.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
And for tonight's top story, an alarming amount of Americans do not have life-saving first aid kits. The company MyMedic is trying to remedy that by selling 20% off on early Friday deals. Josh, tell us a little bit about that.
Glad you asked, Billy. So right now, MyMedic is doing 20% off all first aid kits and med packs, including free training and free gifts.
That's outstanding. Totally fake ad, but totally real deals.
And finally tonight, comedian Bill Maher warning about the dangers of socialism and its negative impact on the Democrat Party.
In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a mess.
It is a lose-lose with this. Either Democrats embrace this and they fail politically, or they win politically and the country fails totally. Now, those are the options. And at least one guy knows it. Bill Maher understands that about his political party. It's scary what's happening here in New York with Mamdani. Finnerty is up next, and we're all just dreading January 1 when this lunatic gets in there with all his wild ideas.
Well, we sure are, Rob. I'm just kidding. Quick question about Bill Maher, by the way. I was waiting to hear. I was listening. Is Bill Maher ever going to invite somebody from Newsmax on his program? And I'm serious about that. Why hasn't he done that yet?
He had Spicer on. Remember Spicer back in the day?
But that's OG Newsmax.
We had one appearance, yeah.
Schmitt, Finnerty, Greg, or Carl. Invite one of us on. We will go.
Tremendously fun to do.
Where does he tape that broadcast?
That's in L.A.
Even better.
You get a free trip out of it.
Schmitt and Finnerty wheels up L.A. first class.
Yeah, we'd have us both on.
All right, Rob.
Good to see you, Rob.
Thank you.